mean to you beyond the screen, beyond that spectacle?
I think the definition of love for me really has moved with every decade of my existence. Love to me in my 20s was the love that I received from my parents in abundance. So love meant protectiveness. Love meant sharing your good days and bad days with your immediate family. In the 30s, then you seeked love in the form of romance. And then you realize that that can be, and at least to me it was, a lonely process. So love meant loneliness to me in the 30s. In the 40s, you find self-acceptance. So then love meant acceptance and self-love. And 40s, I began my love story with myself. Then my children were born. And then the definition of love moved from romance to your parental instinct. And from the age of 44, and now, till 50, now I'm 53, but about 8 years, love became like responsibility. Love became parental instinct. Love changed for me over the years. But broadly, if I have to define love, it's always truly just meant companionship. I think we add layers of romance and intimacy, attraction. But eventually, I think two people in any relationship can only thrive on companionship. I think the line in my very first film, which was said with true hallmark honesty, resonates even today कि अगर आप किसी के दोस्त नहीं हो सकते तो वो रिश्ता आपका प्यार में बदल ही नहीं सकता. So I believe very simply today also love is friendship and companionship.
Beautifully answered, and it also actually helps us understand that it's an emotion which changes with time and also with people that you are in love with or people that you love. So, to the context of weddings, Karan, you've seen so many weddings, at a very large scale, at times very extravagant, and also instances in shadis that are very emotional. I'm sure you've seen all of that up very close because you've seen weddings in more than one way. So, what is the one thing, if I may ask you, that you think most of the people forget to honor, to recognize while in the process of planning that spectacle for the world?
I think most of us look at weddings when we attend them as a celebration. They look at it as beyond like a ritualistic, like just beyond the rituals and beyond the broad feeling for anyone attending a wedding is a celebratory feeling, a feeling of celebration. What I think most of us never understand is the deep level of angst, anxiety and insecurity that the couple actually are feeling at that time. It's a change of everyone's lives. Families, you don't get married to each other. Families get married to each other. So the anxiousness and the insecurity of you broadly fitting into each other's lives. And I don't say this only from the bride's perspective. I say this even from the groom's perspective. Everything's going to change for both of them. But with the bride, societally, so much is expected to change. And that's where my problem lies. Being a strong feminist and always wanting to break the walls of patriarchy myself, I feel that we kind of annul what she is going through. Because she's combating her inner insecurities, but she's also combating outer perceptions. And I think we, as family members or friends who are attending a wedding, are just seeing the beauty of the ghagra, the lehenga, the gota work, the embroidery, the beautiful fine jewelry, the beautifully done makeup and hair and floral setting. But are we really, really looking into her soul? Are we really looking into her inner heart? And are we really feeling her angst, her insecurity, her pain, and of course her love, her abundant love? But we don't want to see that because we are seeing all the outer, we're never seeing the inner. And I'm glad that your endeavor, takes a root into the inner self of a bride, beyond and above the trappings that surround her.
No, so thank you so much for automatically actually leading to my next question that I was wanting to ask. When we first spoke and you immediately said, yes, this is something that moves you, would you please share a little more about the sentiment that came about in your mind when you first heard of this initiative?
Well, I think broadly when we talk about anything to do with weddings, we're always looking, as I said, on the exterior. But I think the bridal retreat was really a retreat in many ways because it talked about the mind, it talked about the heart, it talked about, of course, the cosmeticness of it all. But I love that you have, well-being people on your panel. I believe everybody needs to be therapized. Everybody needs that sense of soul searching. Everybody needs that sense of nutrition. And I think we annul all that when we talk about a wedding. And I believe the bridal retreat is the first of its kind as a platform. Because everyone talks about, when you go to wedding planners and you talk about shadi planning, everyone talks about, bhai, tent itna bada hoga, itne kamre honge hotel mein, decor aisa hoga, shadi aisi hogi, chakmak shadi, chandelier aisa lagega, everybody is seeing that.
And so and so and so will
And
come
all
and
that.
perform.
And ये आएंगे, वो आएंगे, सब कुछ आएंगे. I said, but आपका दिल कहाँ होगा? धड़कनें भी तो होती हैं, दिल भी तो होता है, और वो तेजी से बढ़ती है. And I believe the bridal retreat is about acknowledging the heart, the soul, over and above the outer beauty. And that's why I agreed and wanted to be a part of this beautiful emotional endeavor.
Thank you so much, Karan. We're very, very excited, extremely looking forward to your helping us champion this initiative
Absolutely.
forward. And my next question. Today's bride isn't just planning an event, she's actually stepping into a whole new version of herself. What do you think she needs the most? Not from a checklist, but from her circle, from her community, from maybe herself.
Actually, a bride, a woman needs nothing. And that's the big problem. Is that
You guys should actually clap for this.
people think a bride needs something. A groom may need something. A bride needs something. Let me tell you, the most resilient gender on planet Earth is that of a woman. She is stronger than a man, no questions asked. Everybody wants to ask a bride what she needs. That's where my problem is. Why have you presumed she needs something? She doesn't need anything. She knows her life, she knows the path ahead, she can rule the world. Ask your husband what he needs, because he always needs his mother's blessings.
I totally agree with this. But do you think there is something that then holds them back? Because
It's societal pressure, sometimes parental pressure, parental expectations that you're supposed to be feeling things. And that's where I think the order has to change. And I think there's a certain progressive modernity that has crept into the fabric of our society as we speak. And now the bride is so much, the new age bride is so much in control. She's not succumbing to in-laws' wishes necessarily. She's not succumbing to her to-be husband's demands. She is calling the shots. And I can see that in weddings, and I love that. The bride today is the bride forever, and the bride who knows what she wants. Heart, head, and everything else.
no, I'll tell you something. We totally believe in this, and this thought resonates beautifully with us because we are four pillars of E-Factor, two couples that got together and started the
Yes.
company.
And when I see the two couples and I see all of you united as a family, I can see the women also have, or also mainly have a perspective, and I see that the men allow it, not because the word allow is because they seek their allowance. They allow themselves to flow with their vision.
And also we
And-
find value. Also
Absolutely.
we find value.
And I'm somebody who's been raised by a strong woman, and my mother calls the shots in my life, no questions asked. She's the queen that rules our house and our hearts. And had there to be a marriage at my end, I never got married and never went through the dynamic of a marriage. But I do know what it means when they say the woman in the house. I'm like, no, let's not gender neutralize or generalize anything. It's the individual of a house, and most often the strongest member will be a woman.
Again, thank you for saying that because these are all virtues of your personality
Yeah.
over a period of time that we've seen from the outside. We've observed whenever we got opportunities, and we've read, which is what got us to
And what I
decide.
love that, might I add that with the bridal retreat, I know the focus is on the bride, and one would imagine when you walk into an enterprise like this, that if we're going to see it from a certain lens, but what I absolutely love is the lens is actually only emotion. your entire gaze on this platform comes from emotion. So anyone who is engaging with bridal retreat has to know that you are actually coming to an extended family who will care for your compassionate needs much more than actually the outer surface cosmetic needs. And I love that about this enterprise, and congratulations once again, because what the two couples have done together as a family have truly created something emotionally groundbreaking more than anything else.
Thank you so much for saying that. And my friends, if you could, this is actually for the two ladies of the enterprise, and ably helped back by Reshma. So thank you all of you, and thank you for directly, indirectly recognizing their efforts, because without that, I don't think so this day would have been possible. My last question before I introduce two more people on this conversation. You've actually worked with very powerful women, both in front of the camera and also behind the camera, friendly life, family life, professional life, whatever. You spoke about ma'am being the matriarch of the house. She calls the shots. But what have your interactions with these powerful people, and maybe sometimes not so powerful people that you've dealt with, what have they taught you about strength, softness, maybe transition that a woman experiences before she's entering this new phase of her life?
So I was raised, as I said, I'm an only child to my parents, and my mom was the only child to her parents. So my aunts were really, all of them were my main family that I grew up with, and all of them were working women. They all worked, professionally or worked for an airline, and all of them were hugely progressive, massively liberal, and wholeheartedly emotional beings. So I was raised, you could say, by many women at a very early stage of my life. So my value system taught me a few things that only women can teach you. Women can teach you the ability to express yourself. Men rarely do that. They always keep themselves, emotions, very deeply embedded in their hearts. Women, they tell you what they feel. And I think that's the big lesson that I learned at an early stage. Express my emotions, because then I carry no baggage and I walk light. So that's the one thing that I learned from women, achieving or not, just expressiveness. The second thing that you will be taught by a woman that a man can rarely teach you is your emotional quotient, your EQ. Now, how can you really brush your EQ? Some can do it by watching movies, reading books, or just purely being a good listener. And I think your emotional quotient is equal to being a good listener. We all are so caught up with our own words and our thoughts, we rarely listen. And I think when you listen, you can really contribute to being a true high person on the emotional quotient radar. The third and lastly, the most important, is compassion and kindness. It takes very little to be kind. It takes very, very little. In fact, I feel it takes a lot more not to be. You really use all your negativity and negative juices to flow for you to not be kind. Kindness can be simple, easy, and absolutely and always available. And compassion is your understanding of somebody else's circumstance and being able to read the room and then tap into a conversation post that. These are the abilities, these are the characteristics, and these are the elements that women, all kinds of women that have come into my life from the age of, like when I can recall, from the age of 4 till now 53. Women on set, women off set, women I worked with professionally, women I've known personally. The one common thread that has bound my relationship with women have been these three qualities.
Beautifully expressed, and thank you so much, because आप जब ये सब बातें कहते हो तो हमारा conviction, हमारा belief हमारे इस project में और मजबूत हो जाता है. And taking this forward, I would like to introduce one of the pillars of this initiative, Sonali, who you met in the afternoon, one of the lady founders of the enterprise. Sonali, you had a few questions that you wanted to.
Hi, Karan.
Hi, Sonali.
Thanks for being part of us. So thank you once again. So my first question goes out to you is, you've told some of the most iconic love stories in Indian cinema. Now what makes this bridal retreat a powerful story for this generation bride, but of course off screen? So what is your take on that?
Well, I think the fact that the entire gaze and lens is on the, I would say, the emotional quotient of a bride. It tells the beautiful story of a woman who actually walks with her emotions on her sleeve, even if the sleeve has beautiful gota work on it. But the focus is on the emotion that she carries on her sleeve. And one doesn't look at it with her sense of insecurity or her sense of like anxiety that she's facing. But we look at her decisions, her celebrations, and we celebrate them. We celebrate her in the best possible way, and I think this is the new story to tell because the lensing is what has changed. It's now from her perspective, and I love that about this enterprise. That the entire way she is our protagonist, she is our entire being, our entire film. We start with her, we midpoint with her, and we end with her. She is the be-all and end-all of the wedding, and I love that.
Thank you
So,
so much.
one second, Shivani, before you go on to your next question, I'm being very candid in asking you. Can we pick up some of these lines from you that you've
Yes.
spoken about today?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
With
Thank you.
pleasure and pride.
They were very, very well expressed, so thank you once. Now my second question is that if you could whisper one thing into the ear of every bride just before her wedding day, what would that be? As a storyteller, but also as someone, who deeply understands emotions and how all these things feel on the side.
Just 3 words. You've got this.
Good.
That's it.